presentation proper, I'd like to go over some housekeeping rules. We kindly ask that you keep your audio muted to ensure we all have a great listening experience. If you have any questions on the presentation, please indicate in the chat section. The chat manager will aggregate all questions for the speaker at the Q&A session after the presentation. Today's webinar will be recorded, so if you'd like a copy, please indicate in the chat section, providing us your email address. And finally, we'll have a link to a feedback survey on today's webinar. We kindly request that you fill it out. We'd really like to evaluate your experience today. Thank you very much. So today's webinar topic is 5 simple eating tips for boosting your health. Our speaker today is Dr. Sylvia Mawoyo. She balances the roles of mother, wife, family medicine resident, and associate pastor. Outside of coaching people on how to optimize their well-being, she's regularly looking for ways to support people in living more meaningful lives. She enjoys leading devotional studies, facilitating classes and workshops on medical topics, and grabbing a cup of coffee with a friend, all with the intention of helping people live completely as themselves. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Dr. Sylvia Mawoyo. Over to you, Sylvia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Uche. Alrighty, so to get started, I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see here. Alright, everybody can see that. Alright, can everybody see that? You can?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Great. All right, so again, thank you for the awesome introduction. My name, you can call me Sylvia or V, but yes, I am a family medicine resident, and I'm here to talk about eating your way to better health. And it's on my heart because I have a lot of friends and some family members and patients as well. They're always asking, you know, what should I eat? What should I do to be healthier? And with everything going on right now with COVID-19, people are putting on what I call the COVID-19, which is they're eating to be comfortable, and they might have seen the scale go up a little bit. They might have seen their healthy eating habits go to the wayside. And I mean, that makes sense. When we are stressed or when things are constantly changing in our lives, we go back to eating what makes us feel comfortable, what makes us feel good. But COVID-19 isn't going to last forever, praise God. And I know a lot of people are going to want to be thinking about how they can eat better and how they can eat healthier. And so I have some 5 tips to do that. I just wanted to start off with a disclaimer. Sorry, I'm just gonna move something off my screen. So disclaimer is this presentation cannot and does not contain medical advice. And by medical advice, I mean I am not your doctor giving you advice on how to be healthy for yourself. This is health information, and it is provided for general informational and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional advice. And so accordingly, before taking any actions based on such information, I encourage you to consult with the appropriate professionals, especially if you have any medical conditions that a healthcare provider is looking after. I do not provide any type of medical advice because, again, I'm none of your doctors. I'm not your doctor. So the use or reliance of any information contained in this presentation is solely at your own risk. So that's just medical legal stuff that I have to say. But anyways, let's get into it. So first and foremost, I want us to realize that we should forget about food labels like good, bad, and healthy food. This presentation isn't going to label any kind of food good or bad or healthy, because there's honestly no such thing as good and bad and healthy food. There are things that have more protein, things that have more iron, things that are higher in fat, and things that are higher in sugar, and so forth. But there is such a thing as healthy eating, and that's what all these tips are going to be about. As well, there's not going to be a focus on dieting or weight loss here. Now, if you follow some of these tips, you might lose a few pounds, but that is not the intention of these tips at all. Unless you have a specific medical condition, you do not need to restrict any of the foods that you eat or eat with the goal of losing weight. Such practices, in fact, research has shown they result in eventual weight gain if you're eating solely to lose weight. And so none of these tips are going to focus on that. Alrighty, so let's get into the first tip. Number one is substitute hunger for thirst. And so basically, I want people to know that we're actually thirstier than we are hungry. And in fact, on average, people don't get nearly as much water as they should compared to all the eating that we do. Water is very, very important, and our bodies need water to function. Our bodies are made up of 60% water, and each and every one of our cells in our organs depend on water to survive. Water is life-sustaining, and if we are dehydrated, it can lead to such health issues such as poor concentration, low energy, loss of strength, and it can actually impact organs, specifically organs like the brain and the kidney are particularly impacted. And then skin as well. For some of us who like to look young, water is a beauty secret, and staying hydrated actually staying hydrated actually helps your skin look fresher and rejuvenated and stay younger. But regardless of whether or not you want to drink water to look younger or because it is actually life-sustaining, I encourage all of us to substitute our hunger for thirst. Sometimes when we feel hungry, we're actually thirsty. And so next time I would encourage you, after you've had a meal, if you feel, oh, I think I'm still hungry, actually wait a couple of minutes and drink a glass of water or two, and then see if you're still hungry 15 minutes later. It might have been actually that you were thirsty and not hungry. Or if you're going through the day and before you take a snack, if you don't usually have snacks, drink some water then instead and see if you're still hungry after that. Because it might be your body telling you that you're thirsty rather than you're hungry. And then as well, I know some people say, but Sylvia, I hate drinking water. Water tastes nasty to me. I don't know how water tastes nasty to people. Water doesn't have a taste. But anyways, there are foods that you can eat that actually are high in water content. So, for example, if you drink water, that's 100% water. But if you drink anything like fat-free milk, or you eat cantaloupe, or you eat strawberries, watermelon, lettuce, cabbage, celery, spinach, that's 90 to 90% water. And then if you take fruit juice, yogurt, apples, grapes, oranges, carrots, that's 80 to 89% water. Bananas, avocado, certain types of cheeses, corn, shrimp, that's 70 to 79% water. Did you know pizza, some pizzas, have 40 to 49% water in them? And so I would encourage you, if you, I could send a link or check out a blog post of mine on my website. I have an article that lists all the different types of food and all the percentages of their water content. Alrighty, so the first tip is substitute hunger for thirst. The second tip would be listen to your body. And I don't know if any of you have young children, but I have a young son right now, and he definitely lets us know when he is hungry. He'll pat his belly and he'll say, hungry, hungry. And if he's full, he says, no, 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 every time we try to offer him food. Infants and young children are really good at listening to their bodies. They eat when they're hungry and they stop when they're full. As we grow older, though, that innate, natural, instinct, intuitive way of eating actually goes away because of social pressures. So we see other people eating around us, and we're like, oh, maybe I should keep eating. Parents, sometimes I tell my son, you need to eat. Or if we're working, like I know if I have a busy work day, I kind of tell my body, you can't be hungry because I got to keep eating. And so there are lots of things that happen as we grow up that kind of short circuit that natural intuitive way of eating. And a lot of the times we either end up starving ourselves or we eat past our hunger cues. And so we need to go back to listening to our bodies and actually eating when we're hungry. If you're hungry in the morning, eat something. If you're not hungry by 7 p.m., you don't have to eat something. If you're not hungry in the morning, then I would say, wait until you are hungry. Also too, sometimes when people aren't hungry in the morning, and I'll get into that in another tip, it'd be like, were you eating really late at night? Maybe that's why you're not hungry in the morning, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Ultimately, listen to what your body is saying. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full. And also focus on eating proper serving sizes. So portions are different than serving sizes. So when you go to a restaurant, for example, a restaurant has specific portions that they give people for the meal. But sometimes that portion is much bigger than the actual recommended serving size. I'd recommend that you look up what the serving sizes are for different types of foods and try to make sure that your portions actually match your serving sizes. How you can also do that and listen to your body would be to slow down when you're eating. So instead of scarfing down your food in 5 minutes, try to pace yourself through the meal because our brain takes a longer time to catch up to our stomach to let us know when we are full. And so slow down when you eat and monitor how much you're eating as well through the serving and portion sizes, and then try to eat in an environment that isn't distracting. Because if we're eating in front of the TV, for example, we usually eat more than we intend to do. Also, when you go out and eat at restaurants, skip the appetizers and just focus on the main courses. And my favorite trick is use a smaller plate when you're eating. It actually tricks the brain into thinking if you fill a small plate, it makes the brain think, oh, this is a lot of food. And so then it tells your stomach, oh, you actually are full. And then you actually start to eat more according to serving sizes versus if you eat on a big plate and you have a very small portion on the plate, then your brain thinks, oh, you must still be hungry because you didn't eat a lot, which likely isn't the case. You did eat the serving size, but the picture of seeing small amount of food on a big plate tricks the brain into thinking, oh, you need more food, when actually you don't. So that's some of the tips that you can try as well to help you listen to your body. Another tip that I have is enjoy all of your food. Find ways to enjoy all food types, not just the desserts and the fries, which I love. I have a sweet tooth. I like a good burger and fries. I eat them at least like twice a month. But as well, also try to find ways to enjoy other types of foods, such as fruit and vegetables and grains and different types of carbs and such like that. Because you can eat high fat food, high sugar foods. It's totally fine. Your body does need your body does need all types of nutrients. It needs the fat, it needs the sugar, but your body can't sustain itself off of high fat and high sugar meals. It also needs meals high in protein, needs meals high in iron, it needs meals high in fiber. And so if you find a way to enjoy all types of food, then you ensure that you're getting all the nutrients that you need. And instead of restricting food, because then that will cause you to restrict important nutrients, then yeah, just find different ways to cook, find different ways to season things so that you like what you eat. So if you don't like raw onions, don't try to force yourself to eat raw onions. I personally like raw onions, but anyways, some people, they don't like salads. I wonder if it's just because they haven't found a vegetable or fruit or a dressing that they like on their salad. Some people, they really don't like certain types of bread. And so don't eat that certain type of bread. Find another type of bread that you like that has a lot of the nutrients that your body needs. When you do try to enjoy all of your foods, then you get all the nutrients that you need. And so that leads to bonus tip number 1, balance things out. When you think about your day and everything that you eat during the day, can you think and see whether or not your day includes a lot of fruit, a lot of veggies, a lot of carbs, a lot of meat, some dairy or calcium options, things high in fiber, high in iron, things high in vitamin A and C? Think about it. If you do figure out ways to enjoy all types of food, then you start to balance everything out. And when you balance all your meals throughout the entire day, not each meal has to be balanced, but if you think about all your meals in the day, if they equal to a relatively balanced, healthy eating, then you ensure that your body gets all the nutrients that it needs. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so Tip number 4, find other spices for life. I think this is a really important one, especially I'm Nigerian. And one of the spices and the seasonings that I see used in a lot of Nigerian dishes is Maggi cube. I don't know how many of you know what Maggi cube is, but it's really high in salt. It has other things as well, but it's pretty much salt if you think about it. But it tastes so good. It makes a lot of the Nigerian meals that I try to make taste really, really good. And in fact, a lot of recipes that you'll see ask for seasonings such as salt and sugar. And there's nothing wrong with salt and sugar. In fact, our bodies need salt and sugar. Our cells turn most everything into sugar, and our muscles and our organs, they thrive off of different types of sugars. And our bodies need salt because we use salt to absorb other nutrients like potassium. So I'm not here to say cut out completely salt and sugar at all. But a diet, and what I mean by eating, if you eat a lot of salt and sugar, it can lead to certain diseases. So the most common one, high salt foods, if you eat that frequently, it leads to high blood pressure. And unfortunately, high blood pressure is a very common health condition amongst Africans and African Americans because we like things like Maggi cube and we use it a lot in our food. As well, a diet high in sugar increases the risk of a health condition called diabetes. And diabetes, I call it a silent disease. It impacts every single organ in the body: the heart, the brain, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the skin, the immune system. Every single organ in the body is impacted by diabetes. And if someone eats meals high in sugar, they increase the risk of getting that. And again, unfortunately, diabetes is very common amongst Africans and African Americans and Black people in general. And so, again, I'm not here to say cut out salt and sugar completely at all, but we can find other spices of life to use. There are things like turmeric, curry, thyme, chili powder, coriander spice, cinnamon, vanilla extract, honey. There are lots of different things that we can use to make our meals taste great that don't just need to involve sugar and salt. And so if we start to incorporate in a lot of our recipes these other spices, then I would also encourage us at the same time to slowly start to decrease the amount of salt and sugar that we have in our recipes and what we cook with, so that we can help prevent diseases such as high blood pressure and diabetes. So for example, something that I do, I love to bake, and I make a lot of cookies and muffins and pancakes. Oh man, breakfast is my favorite thing, and I love to make pancakes. Well, with the pancake recipe that I have, it calls for a certain amount of sugar. I know I'm already going to add syrup to my pancakes, so I actually half all the sugar that it asks for. And sometimes I don't even add salt to my baked goods, even though they ask for salt in the baked goods. When I make things like Mongolian stew or I make jollof rice even, I try to look at however much salt that it asks for and try to cut that in half and then add more of the other spices such as the curry and the thyme and the white pepper that I use in my jollof rice. So that the other spices are still there and they taste great, and the salt is less, but it still tastes good, at least to me. And so I would recommend, as you're cooking, try to reduce the amount of salt and sugar that you use in your recipes. It doesn't have to be by half. Maybe you start by 1/8 or 1/4, and then instead increase a little bit the other spices that you use in your recipe as well. So then that way you don't notice as much that there's less salt and sugar in your recipes as well. So I spent a lot of time talking on this point just because of the diseases that are associated with salt and sugar. And again, not to say that you have to cut out salt and sugar completely, but just consider trying to substitute it with other spices for life. So another tip, and this is a point of contention for sure, because a lot of people, like I said, will say, I'm not hungry in the morning, but I really encourage people to eat breakfast. And so the research is kind of mixed. on whether or not breakfast doesn't improve people's health in general, just based on some things, but I'll tell you what the research is clear on. It says that people who eat breakfast usually get more of the vitamins that they need in their life, more of the minerals they need. They eat more complex sugars. They eat less saturated fats and less total fats in general. And they basically eat more of the nutrients that they need for their day-to-day life. And so people who eat breakfast usually tend to meet their nutritional needs every single day. It doesn't mean that they're healthier eaters by far. Like some people can eat cake for breakfast all day. That's not making you a healthier eater at all. But most people don't eat cake for breakfast. Most people eat other things that are more complex nutrients for sure for their breakfast. And you'll see a lot of the things that are sold to eat for breakfast as well tend to be on the more complex nutrient side. And so that's why they say eating breakfast gets more healthier nutrients into your body versus people who skip breakfast. And then as well, research again is kind of split, but most research says that your metabolism is highest in the morning. And so you use more of what you eat when you eat in the morning. And so if you start eating breakfast, then your metabolism kicks off sooner and then it runs all throughout the day. And so whatever you're eating throughout the day, your body is using more of what you eat. And so you just have a higher metabolism. And when you have a higher metabolism, your body is turning what you eat more into energy rather than turning it into fat. And again, I'm not here to focus on weight loss at all. Eating breakfast isn't going to equal that you lose weight, but it does mean that you maintain a good weight and that you maintain a good metabolism, which is good for your health overall. And so breakfast is really awesome, and I would encourage people, especially if you are hungry in the morning, eat breakfast. If you're not hungry in the morning, think about why that is. Did you eat a really late meal, so a big dinner late at night? That might be why you're not hungry in the morning. And so I would say, consider switching that around and having a smaller meal by the end of the day, and then starting your day with breakfast in the morning. And then also wanted to say as well, sometimes people say, okay, so eating breakfast will mean that I have to eat a big meal. Not necessarily. It can be something small. It can be like a granola bar and a glass of orange juice, or a cup of milk and some toast, or eggs and your favorite fruit or your favorite vegetable. It doesn't have to be a big meal, but I would definitely encourage, if you're listening to your body and your body is saying you're actually hungry in the morning, eat something. Eat some breakfast. And so that kind of leads me to conclude that overall, if you want to really do these tips and eat your way to better health, it requires a plan. You've got to plan for this. It's not just something that happens by fluke. You have to have a goal and plan to eat healthy. And the key things that you should have if you're going to plan to eat your way to better health is that number one, you determine the times that you eat based on what your body tells you. And so actually set in time. Like I know for myself, I have a time I eat breakfast, I eat lunch, I eat dinner, and the 2 times that I eat snacks during the day, because I know typically my body is hungry at those certain times of day. And so I plan to eat at those certain times. And then as well, plan what you are going to eat. And that's very important. I don't know if any of you are like me sometimes. If I go to the grocery store without a list, I end up buying everything that I wanted and then some. I buy things that I'm like, I really don't need this. I end up wasting a little bit of money as well. And so I would recommend, if you're going to try to eat your way to better health, plan your meals for the day or the week or the month. And then when you go to the grocery store or when you eat out as well, then you eat according to those planned meals that you have already. And so that you buy and you cook and you eat out according to what you've planned to eat. And then the last thing would be plan where you are going to eat as well. This is very important. Like I said, if we do a lot of distracted eating, so in front of the TV, or if we eat in our office cubicle, sometimes we're not eating the best that we could. And so I would encourage you to plan the actual location and the setting that you're going to eat. You want to eat in a place that encourages you to eat healthily. And so if you know, if you're with some friends that don't eat the way that you would like to focus and try to eat, then don't eat with those friends all the time. If you know that you get distracted in front of the TV and you eat more than you want to, then turn off the TV and actually eat at the table. Plan where you're going to eat. Eat in an environment that is conducive for healthy eating habits. And so that leads me to bonus tip number 2 as well, talking about things that can be really great pairs that go together to help you absorb all the nutrients that you need while you're eating. Because if you plan what you eat, then you can plan to eat things together that will maximize the absorption of nutrients. And so some of the things that I would recommend people eat, like for example, if you want to eat things high in iron and you'd like to focus on that, then also plan to eat things high in iron with things high in vitamin C, especially if you're getting your iron sources from more plant-based, such as nuts and beans and legumes and such, because vitamin C helps with the absorption of iron. So plan to eat high iron meals with high vitamin C foods as well. And then avoid eating high iron foods with things high in calcium, because calcium inhibits the absorption of iron. Then also plan to pair things with that have salt in them with things that have potassium. So for example, sometimes I eat a banana with peanut butter that has some salt in it, because the salt from the peanut butter will help absorb the potassium from the banana. Salt and potassium go together, and so that's why I'm also saying don't get rid of your salt, because it's good. The iodinized salt in our country helps with your thyroid function, and then eating salt helps you absorb potassium as well. And then also pair vitamin D and calcium together. And so there's no food that gives you, unless you drink milk 24/7, you don't really get enough vitamin D in the country of Canada and the States. If you live near the equator and in different countries around the world, then yes, you get enough vitamin D. But I recommend to people that if you don't think that you're getting enough vitamin D in your diet, I recommend to all my patients and people in general, get a vitamin D supplement, one with at least 1,000 international units, and then take your vitamin D supplement while you eat things high in iron. So high in calcium. So like a glass of milk, or certain fish have calcium, or different proteins, different meat options have calcium as well. Pair your vitamin D with calcium. And then also too, for those who love to make smoothies, did you know that things like spinach and kale can actually inhibit the absorption of calcium? And so I would say don't stuff your smoothies with spinach and kale if you're aiming to get calcium out of your smoothies. If you're not aiming to get calcium out of your smoothies and you're just adding yogurt to your smoothies because it tastes good, then that's fine. You'll still get the nutrients from the spinach and kale. You just won't absorb as much calcium from that smoothie or whatever meal that you eat calcium and spinach and kale with. And then the last thing would be there are certain vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin K that are absorbed well with foods that have fat in them. And so, for example, vitamin A is super high in carrots. And so sometimes I eat carrots with chicken because the fat in chicken will help me absorb the vitamin A in the carrots. These vitamins are fat soluble, so I call them ADEK. So ADEK. They're fat soluble. So if you need more of those vitamins, then eat foods that have fat in them with foods that are high in those vitamins as well. And that will help you maximize the absorption of those nutrients. And so overall, that's the presentation. These are my references, and those are all the articles that I use to kind of help inform this presentation. But I know we'll have a question and answer period as well, so I'll be hopefully be able to answer everyone's questions. The other thing is, like I said earlier, I have a website. It's called www.completelyv, and V is VEE.com, where you can find more great tips, advice, and free resources exclusive to subscribers. For example, if you really liked all the tips that I shared here today, if you subscribe to the website, I have a resource called Healthy Eating Smart Goals template. And so it goes over all the tips again, as well as a template for SMART goals, so that if you want to really try to eat these ways to boost your health, then you kind of have a template to help you along the way. And then as well, I have a few social media platforms that you can connect with me with as well. So I have my YouTube channel, Completely V. It's a little different from my website, where for those of you who are living your life faithfully and have a strong faith for God, a lot of my videos help you build a stronger and deeper relationship and maintain your spiritual health with the Lord on that YouTube channel. But then I also have my Instagram page and my Facebook page that is also focused on the blog as well. So on Instagram, it's @completelyv, and on Facebook, it's fb.me//completelyv. And that I post a lot about different posts from my blog and different things going on in my life too, and different tips and advice that I have on a bunch of different topics, from health, relationships, lifestyle, you name it. I'm there to talk about it. So you can connect with me there as well. So I think I've gone over my time a little bit. So I will stop sharing my screen now, and I think we'll start questions and answer.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. That was very, very informative, especially for these times. A lot of people are locked down at home and eating a lot more than they're used to. So thank you very much for that. Once again, to everyone, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat section. The chat manager will aggregate the questions, and I will ask Sylvia. So Sylvia, we have questions pouring in. First one here goes, what's your recommendation on how to navigate the numerous and sometimes contradictory advice from nutrition and health experts?
So sorry, Uche, I'm just going to turn you up because I didn't hear the question. Sorry about that.
My apologies. I'll repeat the question. Let me know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
So can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So what's your recommendation on how to navigate the numerous and sometimes contradictory advice from nutrition and health experts?
Yeah, so first and foremost, I would say everybody needs a family physician. If you don't have one, get one, because we are trained in, like, we have all the resources in terms of proper research based and strong research based information on healthy eating and healthy lifestyle in general. And so if you have questions that pertain to medical conditions as well, you need a family physician. Dr. Google and Nurse Wikipedia are not great healthcare providers, and so please do not base your medical, like what you do for your any medical condition or your health in general, just on Google searches alone. And as well, something that I use, and not a lot of people again have access to, unfortunately, is different medical databases. And so if you have any questions about the health advice that you're seeing there, I would advise looking them up on Google Scholar, because those are research articles. Now, again, not every research article is made equal. Some are actually really poor studies and don't apply to you. And so overall, I would say if you have any questions, ask your family physician, because we are trained on how to take all the information that is advertised on American commercials for different drugs and stuff, or what we see on Google, and we can decipher that and actually say what is legitimate and what is not. So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you very much. To follow up on that, are there any tips for number one, finding a family physician, and number two, finding the right one for you?
Mm. Yeah, so I know in Calgary, for those of us who are in Calgary, you can Google like find a doctor, Calgary, and there is a website. I will quickly Google it and then I'll post it in the chat after. But there is a link that you can use to find a physician, and you can do it based on your address, based on gender, based on the language that they speak. So you could do that as well. Yeah, for those outside of Calgary, I'm not sure how every other province works. And also too, you could, like if there is a clinic that's close by to your place, just walk in and ask, is anybody here taking any patients? And then if not, you can ask them to recommend any doctors that are around the area that they know of that are taking patients. And just so you know, just because you go see a doctor doesn't mean you have to stay with them. And so usually what a lot of doctors are doing, especially us new grads, what we're doing is we do like these new patient interviews. And so patients can come in, we get their history, get to know them. And then from there, usually we say, okay, we'll become your family physician. But if you don't want someone to be your family physician, then just be respectful and call the clinic back and be like, actually, I found a new family physician, so I will no longer be using Dr. So and so as my family doctor. You don't have to stay with the same doctor if you don't like them.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that information. We have something else here that's not really a question, it's a request. It says, can we get a list of the food pairings, please, and thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how you'd want me to send it, but I could definitely either quickly write it in the chat, or I can send an email. And KLVC is hosting, so they might send the email as well.
Okay. So another question here is related to your reference to Maggi, the food spice for Nigerians. It says we're told that Maggi has monosodium glutamate, which is recommended. What do you have to say, and are there any substitutes?
Oh, so that's MSG. So, like I said, so monosodium gluconate, sodium, salt. It's still salt at the end of the day when it's broken down into the body. And salt is good for your body, but like I said, in moderation. And so other things you could do. So how I make my Maggi, my mom will say make it the Canadian way, but she still eats it, so it's all good. And so what I do is whatever the amount of Maggi that it asks for, I reduce it by at least a quarter, and then I just increase all the other seasoning ingredients. And so I put thyme, I put curry, and I put white pepper in my Maggi. And so I just, in my jollof rice, for example, when I make jollof rice, and so I just increase those three ingredients and cut down on the Maggi a little bit. And then as well, in my jollof, for example, I add a little more onion because onion enhances the flavors of food. And as well, I add a little more bell pepper. And so I just increase the ingredients of everything else so that you don't notice as much that the salt has gone down. And instead of using salt, like I said, just try to increase the other spices in the recipe so that those flavors really stand out and that you don't miss the salt as much. But it's a slow progression. Like you don't have to cut it out completely. If you use 2 cubes of Maggi for what you eat, then maybe use 1.5 cubes instead. And then kind of slowly cut it out consistently, not get rid of it entirely, but you can just slowly cut it down to a point where you still enjoy it.
Thank you. Another question here. In your opinion, is keto diet healthy eating?
Diets. Don't like diets. And I'll tell you why. When someone diets, especially when they restrict things, especially with the intention to lose weight, what the body does is it sees a diet as a famine. And so I'll talk about the two different diets, the diets to lose weight and the restrictive diet, so the diets to cut out nutrients. So some people use the keto diet to lose weight. So if your goal is to lose weight, your body will see however you're eating as a famine. And what do people do when there's a famine? When the famine is over, they hoard everything. So like with COVID-19 right now, right? When you go to the grocery store, people are like, oh my gosh, things have come back in stock. Let me hoard it all just in case it goes away. The body will do the same thing. Once you stop that diet, because if it's to lose weight, you don't want to lose weight till you're 0 pounds. You want to lose weight to a certain point, right? If you don't have a medical condition that requires you to lose weight, then what your body will see that diet for losing weight as is, okay, I'm in a famine. Once you start eating again, because now you've reached your goal weight, your body will start to hoard all that food. Your metabolism will go down, and you'll actually put on the weight that you lost and then put on more weight. And now your body will have a new set point of where your weight is. And so say you are 160 pounds and you want to get down to 145. Sure, you'll go down. But then the next time you start eating after that diet, your body will go to like 165 as a new average weight. And it'll be harder to lose the weight. And now you've slowed down your metabolism. And so if you're using the keto diet to lose weight, don't use any diet to lose weight, because your body will actually just pack on the weight once you stop dieting. If you're using the keto diet to restrict certain nutrients, again, I ask, why are you doing that? Because your body needs all nutrients. Every type of food is important. Now, how you cook the food matters. The amount of nutrients, like you don't need a ton of salt versus a ton of protein versus a ton of iron. In keto diets, I believe it's high fat, high protein. Well, then you're missing out all the fiber, you're missing out nutrients, healthy carbs, complex carbs, different types of sugars, different vitamins. You're missing out on a lot if you do a diet like a keto diet, and your body cannot be sustained on that kind of diet for long term. So no, I don't recommend things like the keto diet or any kind of diet, because it's not healthy for the body. The only time a diet is good is if you have a medical condition. So for example, if you have heart disease or high blood pressure, physicians will recommend the DASH diet, which is low in salt, very low in salt, and higher in certain unsaturated fats. If you have diabetes, then we recommend a diabetic diet, which is low in sugars in general, and higher in like fiber and proteins and iron and such. But if you don't have those medical conditions, you do not need to be on a restrictive diet or any type of diet.
Thank you very much. Since we're on this topic, let me ask some maybe almost opposite to the question. So what would you say to someone who says, you know what, I work out, I exercise a lot, and I do that so that I can eat what I want?
So I tell people, you cannot outwork an unhealthy eating habits. So even if you're working out all the time just so you can eat quote unquote whatever you want, it's still impacting the different organs. And so again, if someone says, well, I work out a lot so I can eat a diet that is super high in fats and super high in proteins, I use a keto diet, and I don't have to worry about eating fruits and veggies and all that stuff. Again, your body needs all those other nutrients, regardless of how much you are working out. Our bodies cannot sustain themselves on 2 of the many nutrients or 1 nutrient or 5. You need every single nutrient for your body. And so no matter how much you work out, you still need to balance out what you eat. Yeah, but I would say if you do work out, then you need a little more protein, because you're tearing down and building up muscle if you work out a lot. So then your meal will look a little different from someone who doesn't work out at all, who doesn't need as much fat or protein in their eating lifestyle. So, but you need all nutrients regardless.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I think we have a Maggie rebellion going on here.
That's fair. That's totally
After the nerve. So back to Maggi again. They said
Mhm.
there are substitutes for Maggi without MSG, but they use yeast extract instead. Is that a suitable option?
And so I haven't heard of that substitution. Did you say it uses yeast?
Yeast extract, yeast
Hmm.
extract.
Okay. Well, I would just say look up the amount of salt that's in the Maggi because I'm sure there's still salt in it. If there's not, then go ahead. Like the reason why I brought up Maggi is because the typical one that most people use is very, very, very high in salt. And a lot of people use quite a bit of Maggi in their foods. And so if you're using a type of Maggi that doesn't have salt in it, well, then that's not an issue. Go ahead and use it. Just be aware of the other things that are in it so that you're not getting, again, too much of one nutrient and not enough of another one. So yeah, that's my
Okay. Staying on the topic of spices, um, there's a question here that says, how do we describe the role of native spices? Like, please forgive me, Sylvia, we don't know some of these, but are all
yeah.
typical Nigerian people like this Oda, Oziza, Dawa Dawa, Ukiri, Ozagiza, a lot of, let me just leave it at that. Native spices in our diets, are they for medicinal or nutritious purposes?
Hmm.
What's the role of native spices? Do they add any
Native
value?
spices. So, like like I mentioned before, I think it's important to enjoy all your food. And if that native spice makes you feel good and you enjoy it and you're eating it again in moderation with all the other nutrients that are important in a diet, then I would say the role of them would be just so that you enjoy the food that you're eating. In terms of medicinal purposes, I don't know any of those spices. And so if you send it to me, I could really do some research and see whether or not they help. I know there are some different types of spices in Nigeria that if you have specific medical conditions, and these are rare medical conditions that most people don't have, they're actually bad for people to eat, but your doctor would know that. And so again, if you have any questions about the health benefits of certain native spices, I think it would be most important to ask your doctor about that for your, like, if you have any medical conditions especially. But otherwise, I just say, like, everything, like there are things that people in China eat that are herbs that we've never heard of. And they have nutrients and minerals and vitamins in them that are just as important, right? So I'd say you can continue to eat those. It's just, again, everything in moderation. You don't want too much of something and too at the sacrifice of too little of another
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We have more questions on spices, but I think we'll change gear a little bit.
one. Okay.
So there's a question here that says, do you have any comments on how multiple peer-reviewed research show that the longest lived people in the world, the people in the blue zone, all follow a plant-based diet?
Okay. So, first of all, I'd say send me the article and let me actually look at the methods that they use the research. So, every article that I try to use and such, I make sure meta-analysis are really important, or Cochrane reviews. If you want like general guideline articles, those are your best ones to do, or randomized control trials articles. But then you also have to look at things like what's the power of the study, the number of participants they used, what was their control group, whether or not it was prospective. Like there are different aspects of a study that make it a good one that you can use to apply to your health versus a bad one. However, just going into the whole plant-based diet, I think the reason why people really sell the plant-based diet is one, it's for health conditions. So again, if you have heart disease, a plant-based diet is very important. If you have things like diabetes, a plant-based diet is very important. And it's because plants, they have all, like pretty much all the vitamins and minerals you need. You can get protein and iron, things that you get from meat, you can get in different plant sources as well. And so that's why a lot of people will say, try purport the plant-based diet, because there have been some studies that show like for example the Mediterranean diet, which is high plant-based fishes, olive oil for your fats, and less like beef and chicken, because it reduces the risk of heart disease. But again, like I say, if you are eating a well balanced meal and that's your goal every day, then you don't, and physical activity as well. You don't have to do these plant-based diets. So yeah, I guess I hope I answered the question there. They're not necessary at all. Mhm.
All right. I think to the person who asked the question, if the answer wasn't very clear, I'm sure you can still follow up with Sylvia on her website or through her social media pages. Um, Back to spices.
Okay.
So, I said, is the MSG in chicken bouillon healthy? If not, what is a healthy alternative? I'm not sure I know what chicken
Oh,
bouillon.
chicken bouillon is, I say it's like Maggie cube as well.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
so
Okay.
MSG is a type of salt,
Mhm.
just so everyone gets that. And so the MSG in chicken bouillon is salt. And so I would, what I try to do, like, you know, those prepackaged chicken bouillons or Maggie cube, or like in the store you could buy containers of all-purpose seasoning and stuff. I actually just look at what's in them. What are the ingredients? And then I just buy all the separate ingredients and I make my own. So for example, my husband and I, we make our own all-purpose seasoning. All-purpose seasoning, one of the first ingredients is salt. Well, for us, one of the first ingredients is black pepper and garlic powder, which does have salt in it, but we don't, but they also add salt plus garlic powder in there, plus garlic and stuff. And so we just try to look at what's in chicken stock, for example. And chicken stock is really like the flavorings that fall off of chicken and the bone and the marrow and water. And so you can make your own chicken stock. There are lots of recipes for that. You can make your own chicken bouillon. There are lots of recipes for that. So that's a healthy alternative that I might recommend, is try making your own. You're going to save money, and then you can control the flavoring and the amount of salt that's in it as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I think at this point, we probably have like a presentation just focus on spices. It seems like this is a hot topic, but anyway, another question here, Sylvia, is what's a good protein in a plant-based diet?
So I would say beans are really, they're high in protein, so high in protein, and they're high in fiber, and then they're a good iron source. So like lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans. I have a black bean pancake recipe. Anybody wants that? Some people will be like, you put black beans in your pancake? Yes, I do. And my son loves it very much. My husband, I'm still working on him. But there are certain beans that actually, they really don't have any taste. And if you blend them into your food, you won't notice. So like, for example, lentils. When I make spaghetti or pasta sauce with a tomato-based one, I just blend lentils into it. You don't taste it at all. It's very bland, but then it adds the iron and the protein and the fiber that you need. And then tomatoes are in that pasta sauce, so then that high vitamin C in the tomatoes helps absorb that plant-based protein and iron. And so lentils are, so beans and legumes in general are really great plant-based source of protein and iron and fiber.
Thank you very much. I think we'll cap it here for the questions. So thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia. I think I speak for everyone. I say it was very informative. Thanks as well for the time and responding to all our questions. We really appreciate it.
I was gonna say, Ujay, just really quick, I'll put my email in the chat because it's not included on one of the slides for contacting me. So I have an email that if anybody has any other questions about what I presented on, for sure you could send me an email.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone who's been in attendance. Just another reminder as well, we have a link to a survey on this presentation. We kindly ask that you click on that link and respond to the questions. We'd like to evaluate want to evaluate your experience today to improve on these presentations. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to some bits of information that are in partnership with Kingdom Life Ministries. Firstly, like Sylvia highlighted, she has a website, Completely V. It's a lifestyle website for living life fully and freely. I've checked it out myself. It tends to be oriented towards mainly towards the ladies, but there's amazing content there for guys as well. So you can connect with her through her website or through some of her social media channels. They're listed on the slide, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, as well as on YouTube. Um, in addition to that, if you would like to get in touch with us on this webinar or any other related matters, please send us an email at kingdomlifeministries@gmail.com. I'm also like to highlight that this is our last session for this season of the 5 Ideas webinars. We'll definitely notify everyone when we'll be starting our next season. Also like to highlight a book, Path to the Dream Life by Pastor Anayo Walker. It's a motivational book about rising above circumstances to achieve a dream life. We have another book by Pastor Kikelola Emejafor titled Fulfilling Purpose in Everyday Life. It's a collection of short stories about discovering God's plan for your life. And finally, we have the Purpose Actualization Training Program. So the purpose of activating your potential and actualizing your purpose. If you need more information on that, you can visit the website, theacademy.com. That's ARK, A-R-K, academy.com. I believe it's in the chat. So with that, I think we'll bring today's session to a close. Thank you very much once again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Sylvia, for the amazing presentation. We'll look forward to connecting with everyone pretty soon when we start another season of the 5 Ideas webinar series. Thank you and have an amazing rest of your day.